you're going to get plenty of sleep before going against Kyler Murray?
I'll get as much sleep as I normally do because at the end of the week I'm pretty tired, and I think I could probably sleep through anything by that night. But obviously, my first time going up against him, I've seen him play. I've watched him. I watched him in college. I watched him on TV plenty of times, and then I spent all week watching him so far. Dynamic player. Not just as an athlete and a runner like everybody talks about, but he's got a really strong arm. He's got a really good release, and he can make some great throws. And then the ability he has to make people miss and keep his eyes downfield and keep plays alive, because he's not just looking to run the ball all the time either. I mean, the guy's he's an amazing player and an amazing athlete. And every time you turn on the tape, I think there's one clip where he's kind of running around and he ducks, and three guys kind of run into each other like a Three Stooges episode. Most people probably don't remember Three Stooges, but I mean, he's just got the ability to make people miss and do some dynamic things. I mean, you saw him last week against the 49ers kind of pull one, and just he can fly. So we'll definitely have our work cut out for us in that regard.
Does having played Richardson and Hurts, does that help you at all for this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in 5 games now, we've won against 2 really mobile quarterbacks who were dynamic athletes. One could throw the ball, felt like 110 yards, and the others had success year after year. So it's kind of, our guys know what it's going to feel like. They've had to change some things. We've had to call some different things to get ready for those guys. It's not always fun, but I think it's a little bit different. They do some of the things schematically that we've seen the last 2 guys, but I think the biggest challenge with him is the way he can accelerate and stop and start. It's incredible. So, but hopefully that helps that we've done it twice already.
Evan Williams was saying that he kind of had a feel for that game-winning play that he made because he saw it earlier in the drive. How rare is it for a rookie to have that kind of instant recall, and what is it about him that allows?
He's a very intelligent player. He's a very intelligent person. I think one of the biggest things that he's done to put himself in the situation that he's in now, and having a bigger role, is he's starting to learn how to study the game more, and he's starting to understand how serious you need to take it. Because when those opportunities come, you have to be ready for it. And that's a huge moment, not only to recognize the play, but to stay poised, not foul, stay square, because we did get a very similar route earlier, and he played it really well. He stayed square, he was balanced, his eyes were in the right place. He had a hand on the back, but he didn't tug. He got the arm out, and he got the ball out. That's a big play in a huge situation. And the cool part was it wasn't too big for him. I mean, that's 4th and 5 against, in my opinion, one of the best quarterbacks in this league, and he was able to get a huge stop. So,
what did you like about going that way with him, and then with Javon in the slot, and the way he lined up, and what prompted you to go that way other than just not having Jair?
I think when you watch Bull play, and you watch him, and this is just being very transparent with you, not trying to hide anything. You watch how physical he is around the ball, and you just want to try to find ways to get him more involved play after play. And we were playing a team that we felt was going to try to run the football a lot, and what better way to get a good physical defender in a 11 personnel grouping, right? So rather have a guy that's just going to be in there for, coverage reasons. You kind of get the best of both worlds now, and you're almost playing with 3 safeties. He can do it all, though. I think he can cover. I know he's physical in the run game. He's a really good blitzer. We've seen that like last week. Remember, he kind of wrapped and rolled the guy from behind the line of scrimmage. So all those things kind of prompted us to say, all right, maybe mentally now he's ready to take a step and play another position, because it's hard, right? It's really hard. And what's really hard, too, is having to go back and forth within the same game and play 2 different positions, because say you hear one call, it means 2 different things at those positions. So it's hard for a young player to do that, and I think he'll get closer and closer for that. But it was really just getting him around the football more. And we felt going into that game that was the best way to use him for us to win the game. And I think as we look at every game, it's who do we have, who do they have? And I've kind of said this, is where do we want to put the pieces to give our team the best chance to win? And that's really the only thing that we try to do and we care about.
Did you feel any better about the the pass rush this last week, and I know we've asked you about this before, but Cooper seems like he brings some juice to that part of the game.
Yeah, Coop brings a lot of juice. If you guys saw him rush we had the one where we knocked him out of field goal range, right? He kind of came around and had a big play there. And then at the end of the game, we kind of had a different pressure where he wrapped around, and he's another part. You get two rookies in that situation on a 4th and 5 against Stafford at the end of a game in a 2-minute drive. One affected him throwing the ball quicker. He sped him up, along with the rush. I mean, it wasn't just Cooper either. And then Evan obviously made the play. I thought there were times we got real good pressure on him. He gets rid of the ball extremely quick, and I think if you look, he threw the ball, 45 to 50 times. There was a lot of quick here, quick there, quick here, quick there. I mean, he sees it really well, and he was getting rid of the ball pretty quick, but I thought we hit him, and I thought we pressured him. So I thought for the most part we did a pretty good job. I mean, he's a great player.
You mentioned the bigger role for Evan. One of the byproducts of that is obviously having both him and Javon on the field together. When Jair returns, whether it's this week or some other week, you're going to have a decision to make. Have they kind of implemented themselves to the point where they both got to stay on the field?
Yeah, I think that's a great problem to have. Ja comes back. Hopefully we'll get Ja back soon. And once he does, we'll have to figure out who we're playing, who our opponent is, what receivers we're playing against. Can there be different packages in the game? You know, we call the package that Bull was in one thing, and he knows to come out in the field in that spot. And when he goes to the safety position, we call it something else, and he goes to the safety spot, and Keyshawn was going into the nickel spot, right? And this week we have some other things possibly up where we say this, and guys are in different spots. I think it's our job to, if they're playing well, to find roles for them and make sure that they're on the field. But what unit gives us the best chance to win that particular game? I think it's very nice to have options. And the more guys that are healthier, the more competition we have, the better we'll get, the better they'll get, and we'll play better defense as we continue to go. But having those guys on the field and having the versatility where they can kind of switch around positions, I think it's huge.
Is it matchups? Is it player development? Like, how do you decide which option to go with when you have those options?
Matchups is huge, right? So, for example, if they're going to line up with 2 tight ends, 1 back, and 2 wide receivers, so they're getting into a bigger grouping, do you want to put a Sam linebacker on the field, or do you want to put Bull on the field and play like that nickel Sam position, right? What are they doing out of it? Are they going to spread us out? Or are they going to get big and try to run the ball? Well, then maybe you want to put the Sam on the field. If they come out in 11 personnel, right, 1 back, 1 tight end, and 3 wide receivers, do they want to spread us out and throw the ball? And maybe do we want to play a lot of a certain coverage, and maybe we'll get true nickel personnel on the field and play with more corner-like people? And if we feel like we have to play against the run, do we want a bigger body, a more physical body in the game? Then what do we want to do on 3rd down and medium versus 3rd down and long based on what the tendencies are and who they put on the field? So I think matchups are really, really important, right? But then I also think it's within the course of the game, how are they trying to attack us, and what are we going to do to stop it? And that's constantly going back and forth. So I respect the question a lot. I think this game is a lot about matchups, and I think sometimes people take it for granted that it's not always your X's and O's. And like I've talked, these blitzes you can draw up and these coverages you can draw up, ultimately it's going to be me against you, and I have to get off the block, or I have to cover you, or I have to beat you on a pass rush, or I have to tackle you, and those are the things we got to win. So who gives us the best chance?
Are there ways to get guys off the chip blocks other than bringing extra guys so the back has to pick somebody up?
Yeah, there were some games we ran where I don't want to get into specifics, but there were some things that we did in that game where we did get them off of chips, and we almost came through on one of them, and we caused a quick throw and an incomplete pass on 3rd down because of that. So there's certainly ways we can help them. You can't do it all the time, but there's definitely things that we can do. And again, I mean, I just want to win, and we've talked about that. I want to play really good defense, and I want to help our team win, and I want to have our players do the best that they can. That's always going to be the most important thing with me. So we need to figure that out, and I thought we did a really good job against a really good offense last week of doing that and holding the points down, and ultimately we stopped them when we won the game. When we talk about pressures and sacks, if teams want to chip us here and chip us there and use the back and get into a 7-man protection, and we only have to cover 3 wide receivers, then our win rate is going to go up, right? Or if they just want to slide to a certain guy and get the protection to that guy and get a chipper on this guy, well, then these guys on our team are going to open up. And if you look at the grand scheme of things right now, we do have some sacks and our pressure rate's pretty good because it ultimately is a team game. And that's the most important thing for all of us to understand on our defense right now. And that's hard sometimes, right? Because everybody wants to say, well, this guy's production isn't where it needs to be, and this guy should have more of these. But ultimately, it's got to be about the team. And I respect and I appreciate that those guys, they're not being selfish about it. They're such team players, and they're working together. And in a game like that is a classic example of why we had success on defense with some of those pressures, right, that we were getting and some of the sacks that we got in the game. Because ultimately, it's about the team getting the sack, not the individual. And that's very important to me.
What's the challenge for a defensive coordinator like you facing a guy like Tucker Kraft or a guy like Trey McBride who you have to deal with this game?
Yeah, he's a good player. I have a lot of respect for him. I think he plays the game they play very similar. We actually said that when we were watching tape, and I have so much respect for both of those guys. They play so hard. They can line up at a tight end and they can block, and then they can flex out and they can run, and then they can catch the ball like you saw us do and take it down the field. And there's that violent style of running where, they're going to stiff arm DBs and try to get all those extra yards. You're just playing a complete tight end. Where if you play a guy that we know can't run routes and he's just going to be a blocker, then there's a lot of different things we can do schematically, right? Or like you were saying, matchups. If we play a guy that can flex out, but he's not going to be worth the block, then we can put DBs and we can play coverage. When you get a guy who can do both, now you got a good player. I think he's a really good player. I respect the way he plays the game.
More, please. Hey, Jeff. Guys sometimes get pigeonholed in this league, obviously. What was it about Keyshawn that made you confident that you could play him outside, and what do you think of what he's done for you in that role?
I think Keyshawn's had a really good year, and I think it's been kind of quiet that a lot of people haven't brought him up. But look at what he's been able to do. His coverage has been tight. He's been able to blitz. He's been aggressive against the run. What you start to see when you watch his film is he's starting to play man really well, which is huge to play on the outside or on the inside. And he brings the physicality from the corner position when you have to crack, replace, and do all those things at the nickel. It was just a matter of, can he learn both, and can he do both within the same course of a game, which is very hard to do. And he's come along and he's practiced it, and we felt confident that he could go in the game and do those things because he's a physical guy too. He's physical with those wideouts, both in the run game and in the pass game. And he had I thought he covered really well against the Rams, like really well. He was keeping his leverage. He was right on guys' hips, and he's a reason a lot of those passes he was holding on, especially at the end of the game. He was tight, and I think there's a confidence with him right now. But I would say right now, I think Keyshawn needs to get more credit than he's probably getting for all that we've asked him to do and all the different things that he's actually been able to have success with. And I'm really proud of him. I think he can continue to take steps.